live there. So welcome everyone to our August 7th meeting of the British Empire Study Group. For those of you who are joining us for the first time and don't know who we are a group of people who like stamps and philately. Postal history is also fun, or you don't have to like stamps at all. You could just like the stories. Everyone is really welcome here. Special shout out to anyone who is a new collector or not a collector and just wanting to learn what this stamp thing is all about. You're welcome. You're in the right place and you have the right, you pick the right seminar. So we normally meet online, but our next meeting will be hybrid, and I'll get to that at the end of my little spiel. It is fun. Our next meeting is going to be a hybrid meeting, and it's letter locking, the history of the letter. This is with Jana, and she is from MIT, and this will be a fascinating talk for those of you who are looking for some history, because MIT is not a philatelic institute, yet they did this study of all these 1,600 letters, and some of their conclusions are fascinating. There is a book about it that they wrote, and I encourage you to come to New York, and you could join us in person. I'm still working on the menu. It will be all folded items. Just working on that. And then afterwards, Jana has some cute things for us to do with the letters. So right now, I am going to turn it over to my co-conspirator, Robert Lutens, to introduce tonight's speaker. Rob?
Thank you, Joan. Welcome everyone to the British Empire Study Group August webinar entitled Exploring a Strange New World, Tackling an Inherited Collection or Starting a New Collecting Direction with Ted Tyszka from TED Talks Stamps on YouTube. Whether you're interested in exploring the hobby for the first time or you've become a custodian of an inherited collection and are unsure of what to do with them, Ted will share his valuable insights. Ted started collecting stamps in 1974 at the age of 19. At the time, Ted was 1 year into his 6-year stint in the U.S. Air Force when a friend of his was telling him about his hobby of stamp collecting. Ted asked his friend to show it to him and became amazed at the variety of material in his collection. The friend was an advanced collector with several complete Scott International albums. Up to that point, Ted had only known stamps as things required on letters and postcards so that they could be mailed. He didn't even know that there were such things as commemorative stamps at the time. His friend's collection inspired him to begin a collection of his own. And although he had periodically shifted his focus to other collectibles over the years, such as baseball cards, comics, and vintage paperbacks, he's consistently returned to his stamp collections, which he intends to continue. Ted is a member of several clubs and an officer of the Internet Philatelic Dealers Association. He's created a wide variety of philatelic videos on YouTube where you can find him under the heading TED Talks Stamps. I've watched several of them myself and I can highly recommend them. So without further ado, here's our presenter for the evening, Ted Tyszka.
And welcome, everybody. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Joan. And thank you all out there for popping in to watch and listen. Like Rob says, my name is Ted. I'm just going to talk a little bit about what you might do to get through this inherited collection, how to evaluate it, what you might expect to find, what you won't expect to find. But first, I'd like to just go over a little bit about, the hobby in general for the ones who are new. You might not realize how the popularity has really dropped in this hobby. You probably read a lot about it in forums or, other places. But stamp collecting no longer carries the cachet that it once did as like a sophisticated hobby, so to speak. And more people gravitate nowadays to more fun, exciting, and cool hobbies like, baseball cards or comic books. Uh, these are areas where literally items that were printed last month have already shot up in value, to hundreds or even thousands of dollars, you know, because uh, card companies and comic companies, they put out limited collectible editions that just attract the more speculative minded collectors. And in contrast, stamp values, they move like Arctic glaciers. There's stamps that are many decades old that have not gone up in value and have even dropped in value. The peak was in the early 80s when this stamp market busted. And there were several reasons, some that go beyond the the hobbyist aspect. Uh, Congress took away IRA tax deductions for collectibles, although that had nothing to do with really collectibles, and that mainly affected the high-end market. But even so, the lower valued stamps were affected also as people, drifted away from the hobby. In the mid 80s, stamp collecting got a real gut punch as comic books and baseball cards both entered a boom period. And like I said, more people drifted away from stamps then. Uh, in fact, so for instance, in 1990, I was sitting in the lunchroom at work and I was intent on reading my book when out of the corner of my ear, I heard my best friends say, "Does anybody collect postage stamps?" Oh, well, that caught my attention, and I looked up and I said, "Yeah, I do." And my friend snickered actually and said, "You do?" And I said, "Oh, he didn't mean that seriously." So, and that's basically the way the stamp collecting hobby has been viewed by other people since then. No, I'm not home. uh, so, and in fact, you may know the Punk Philatelist. He has a podcast, or he had one. I'm not sure how he's keeping up on it these days, but his podcast was even named "Stamps Aren't Cool." So, so we're in a kind of a minority here, but it's okay. Stamp collecting is for your own enjoyment, right? So, uh, I'm sorry. You'll have to pardon me for consulting my notes. I'm not a very good off the top of my head speaker. So, anyways, all right. Um, I mentioned this just to make the point that if you're entering the hobby right now, it should not be because of that you think that stamps are a good investment or that your stamp collection will grow in value and that eventually you'll put your kids through college. Um, Stamp collecting is is for those who are interested in the stamps themselves, in the history of the stamps, in postal history, in postal markings and such. And value, stamp value should be just of a secondary or even tertiary concern. Now, that's not to say that you can't take my arms off the table so my picture's not jiggling. That's not to say that you can't put together a stamp collection that will grow in value, but that's really a different mindset where you're less interested in just forming a nice collection and uh, you're looking more towards studying stamps like uh, financial analysts study stocks. And that's a completely different thing. So, on the other hand, you know, you can put together a nice collection, and by arming yourself with knowledge and by attending meetings with, these study groups like you are here, you'll be able to navigate the highways and the byways of philately and avoid a lot of the pitfalls and mistakes that many investors make. So let me go ahead and just start my slideshow. We'll start with number one here. Because I'm going to be talking mainly about those who have inherited a collection or an album and just kind of feel overwhelmed and don't have a clue where to start. So first thing is when you get a collection, you have to just assess the overall uh, appeal of it, or what it looks like. For instance, here is a beginner stamp album. If this is what you've inherited, you'll have to understand that this is a beginning. It's an album of the world, and it's about what, a half-inch thick, maybe, and it's paperback. It's, as you can see here, it's torn up. This is not something that you will expect to find a valuable collection within. Um, so go to the next slide. Look at this collection that you've gotten and be honest with yourself. Smell it, for one thing. Does it smell moldy and mildewy? Does it smell cigarette smoky? Are the stamps in disarray like these? Go on to the next slide. There's another example. They're just, you see, tapes, poor condition pages with old Scotch tape on it. The stamps are worn around the edges. They've turned brown. There's no order. They're just random stamps. Australia, Singapore, Malaysia. No real thought has been put into the organization. If you go on to the next slide, again, it's just a ramshackle collection here. So, which is fine. Somebody got enjoyment out of collecting these. None of this is to put down anybody who collected these stamps and put them in these albums. But it's, like I said, just to make the point that this is not a sophisticated collection, so to speak, that you're not going to find much value in. And when I speak about value, let me emphasize that yes, stamps they're priceless when it comes to sentimental value, historical value, and educational value. That's not to put down any of that. Yes, there's a lot of value there. So I'm only going to be talking about the monetary value. None of these stamps that you see here have really any monetary value at all. These are, a lot of them are damaged. You see discoloration. And these are basically what you would call packet material. These are stamps that dealers would put hundreds or thousands of stamps together in a packet to just sell for a couple of bucks to collectors. So, like I said, and then give it a sniff. If it smells old, and smells mildewy, that indicates a collection that was not properly stored and taken care of. So it's indicative of a collector who was not methodical in purchasing stamps and preserving them and mounting them. Let's see, let's go on to the next one. Now here, this is a little bit better presentation. You see the stamps are neatly arranged. They are squared up within their mounting boxes. They're not damaged. They're not discolored. And you go on to the next slide. On the next slide, you'll see, another page similar. There we go. Again, here's a different album, but again, you see there's a stamp, there's a space for every stamp, and the stamps go into their own particular designated spaces, and this is a nice, neat arrangement. And if you go on to the next slide now, best of all is if you find a nice, sturdy, professional quality album like the Scott National Postage Stamp album. And if you look on the next page, the next slide, the stamps are neatly mounted in protective show guard mounts. And the pages are printed on a single side, so that you'll see on the left side, the facing page does not have any stamps mounted on it. That way, when the album is closed and then you open it, the stamps do not get tangled up within each other and tear the stamps or otherwise damage them, crease them. So this is a better presentation. If you go on to the next stamp, the next slide, you'll see some more from the Scott pages. They're all nicely mounted and neatly arranged on the page. And more than likely, if you lift up the stamp mount, you'll see the Scott catalog number for each of the stamps. So then here we have a nice, if the stamp collection you inherited looks more like this, then you can be more hopeful that you're going to find something of value. Going to the next one. Again, next one. And here's like, you're getting up into the ultimate. This is a Lindner Hingeless album. Oops, go back to the previous. Yeah. And this is a very expensive album. And if you have something like this, then of course, then you can expect higher quality stamps. And the reason that all this matters is that proper storage and presentation indicates a collector who understood the importance of preservation, and that would suggest a higher likelihood of finding better quality stamps. Poor storage, as we saw in the earlier slides, means damaged stamps, which are, typically worthless. So we go on to the next slide then. You want to know then, once you've determined that you do have, stamps worth looking for, I'll give you some tips on what to look for. First, you want to cull the worthless stamps. Like I said, I'm speaking only monetarily here. So clues as to, what are the low value and even worthless stamps. So when you have just a lot of low denomination stamps, we're talking about, this is the British Empire Study Group, so talking about British Commonwealth stamps. If all you are seeing are halfpence, 1 penny, 2 penny stamps, and multiple copies of that, at that, and you're talking about minimal value stamps. In other countries, you want to look for, like say in Germany, you want to find stamps denominated in Deutschmarks rather than Pfennig. Okay, speaking specifically, take a look through the stamps if they are, in nice catalog order. Here's an example. This isn't a particularly valuable set. This is a set of 4, Queen Elizabeth. Numbers, these are Scott numbers now. I'm sorry, I don't have the Stanley Gibbons catalog numbers if you're using that. But these are Scott 313 to 316 from like 1955. Any collector that has taken up the hobby halfway seriously is going to have this. So look, see if you find this set in your collection. This has a retail value of, $9 or $10. And incidentally, this set was notable for, you see the lower right, the green stamp. It shows Queen Elizabeth in a full frontal face view. That was quite unusual, probably even unique at this time. All the stamps before this were either profiles or these 3/4 views seen in the other 3 stamps. But anyways, any stamp, any collector above the beginner level will most likely have this set. So, look for this one. Look on the next slide. On the next slide, there we go. We go up a little bit in value. This set will be $15 minimum. A little bit more if it's depending on the centering and condition. If it's in good sound condition, no tears or creases, it can go from $15 and up. On the next slide, you'll see an even higher valued set, which you might look for. This is from 1955. It's called the Castles set. And this one, we're talking about $75 to $100 or more for this set. So in Great Britain, to get a quick overview of what you have, look for these sets. And always look for, complete sets. You might find 1 or 2. But the sign of a more serious collector will be if you have the complete sets available. Going on to another country, Canada, in the next slide. If you have Canada in your collection, look for what's called the Admirals set deck. Canada Admirals that show King George V in his Admiral uniform. This is a very popular set among British Commonwealth and particular Canada collectors. This set does cost quite a bit more. If you go to the next slide, the cheapest stamp in the set is the 3-cent stamp. That would have been the workhorse stamp, that paid the normal letter rate. And in this set, that is the cheapest one that goes for about $5 itself. So, the complete set that we saw will go for quite a bit more. But like I said, in evaluating any collection that you inherited, see if it has any of these stamps. And also any other stamps. The Admirals were issued from between 1911 and 1925. And if your album or collection is arranged in order, look for any other stamps in that same time period, because Canada has a lot of higher valued stamps from that time period. Getting away from the major countries and into the British colonial issues, looking at the next slide, uh, uh, British colonial African stamps are very popular. And for example, Southern Rhodesia, their first set was a set of 14. Here I only show the first 5 so you can get a good look at them. But here again, you may find several of these in your collection, but if they're the lower denomination, half pence, 1 penny, 2 penny, 3 penny, these are all low value stamps. The first 7, in fact, of this set are all pretty low value. They can be found for just a couple of bucks, $2 or $3 each. Whereas the last 7, numbers 8 through 14 in the Scott catalog, they will all go from between $10 and $75. And this is a set that you'll have to piece together yourself. As I looked on Hipstamp and I found no complete sets available. So you would have to find these and put it together piecemeal, one stamp at a time. Going on to the next slide, Norfolk Island is another popular area. Norfolk Island it's a nice country to collect, as there's only a few stamps of any significant value. This is Scott number 13 through 18, and the complete set can be purchased for $15 to $20, and most of that value is in the last stamp, number 18, which you can see on the next slide. The number 18, most of the value of that stamp of that set lies just in this one stamp. So, which has a $32 catalog value, although it would sell for significantly less. As most of you are probably aware, catalog values are greatly overstated compared to the actual retail value. But if you have other stamps in this set and you're missing this one, well, that's kind of indicative of a stamp of a collector that really wasn't serious in completing a set. Please excuse me for my stumbling around here. So anyways, going on to the next slide, here's another set where you have 6, 12, 13 stamps in this set, which goes for about $35. On the next slide, you'll see though that it's only the last stamp, the 10 shilling stamp, where most of the value in that set lies, which this stamp alone sells for $20. And then there's only one other stamp. If you go to the next slide, well, no, actually, sorry. Excuse me again. So if you're looking for, value in your collection, look for these stamps, but make sure it has that high value, the high face value stamp in it. And you notice it's 10 shilling. The high value stamps don't lie in the 1 penny, 2 penny, 3 penny stamps. It's in the shilling stamps. So in the next slide, we go on to Bermuda. And this is another set that you might expect to find in anything above a beginner's collection. As this is a fairly low price stamp. It's about $15, and most collectors that are, going beyond the beginning stage, this is a set that they will gravitate towards. It's a very popular set, and you would expect to see this in a intermediate or higher level collection. If you go on to the next slide, there's another Bermuda set for the tercentenary. And this one's a little bit more. If you find, any of these stamps, then you're doing pretty good. The whole set in unused condition will cost minimum $55 to $75. So, you know, if you find these, then it's worth taking a closer look at the rest of the collection. Now, I've been showing you mint stamps, and that's not to say that used stamps are, you should ignore those. By all means, no. Especially in classic British Commonwealth, there are many used stamps, for instance, in this set, where the used stamps are actually worth more than the mint stamps. So you'll definitely want to take a close look at the used stamps. So that's it for the slides that I have here showing you these examples of stamp sets that you might want to look for. If you want to just switch to the camera, I just got a few more points to make. When delving into your stamp collection, I highly recommend that you get a major catalog. Did I lose my my camera?
You lost your camera there, Ted.
I don't know. Oh, my video got X'd out for some reason.
Okay.
Oops, come back. Okay,
You're back.
there it is.
There you are.
So, um, I can't stress enough how important a good major catalog is, like the Stanley Gibbons catalog, especially for British Commonwealth and British Empire, or the Scott catalog. And it doesn't even have to be up to date. An old catalog, any set that you can afford, because the value of a catalog goes beyond just the stamp values that are given. And in fact, I don't even pay attention to any of the catalog values, but the catalog is worth far more for just the information that it provides. Both catalogs, the Gibbons and the Scott catalog, have good introductory sections with loads of information on stamp production, how stamps are created, how the dies are produced, how they are printed, and various other things on watermarks. You'll have reference pages on the omnibus issues. Omnibus issues are ones where several countries put out a set for the same design. Europa stamps are an example of omnibus issue. All the European countries put out a commonly themed stamp, and in the earlier days, a lot of British Commonwealth countries put out omnibus issues for commemorating monarch. What do you call it when they were crowned? When they
Coronation.
coronation issues. You're right. And so, yeah, you can get reference lists for all those various, for not just Great British stamps, but for Portugal, for uh, other countries. And the catalogs will give you loads of information. Uh-oh, here we go again. Stamp catalogs will also give you information on, counterfeits. They will warn you when certain stamp issues are known to have a lot of counterfeits. A They'll tell you where used stamps are worth more, but you have to get postally used stamps instead of, say, CTOs, the cancel to order stamps. Um, the catalogs are indispensable for differentiating between different stamps that look identical but have tiny, tiny differences in the design that make a difference between a 10-cent stamp and a $1,000 stamp. So please find a set of catalogs. There are online catalogs such as stampworld.com and Colnect, and they are good to an extent, but they cannot replace a good Scott or Gibbons catalog. Uh, and then after you've gone through, let's see, let me.
There we
There we
go.
are again.
Oh,
Well,
we
I
lost
don't know
you.
why I get those static lines. Yeah, it keeps Xing out. All right, let me try to barrel through this then. Um, Once you've gone through your collection, you have to decide whether you want to maintain this as a worldwide collection, if that's what you got, or if you want to specialize in a certain country, or if you already have a specialized collection, if you want to branch out into another country. What do you do? Or how do you decide even? Well, many collectors collect according to their own family ancestry. My mother was German, my dad's Polish, or his parents were Polish anyways. So I have German and Polish ancestry, although Polish stamps never particularly appealed to me. But I love the old German stamps and the stamps of the old German states, such as Bavaria, Prussia, and Saxony, and the German colonies, such as German East Africa, German New Guinea, Caroline Islands, etc. And so I've uh, uh, taken Germany as a specialized area. And a couple of years ago, we sold our house and we moved to Portugal, and we sold off everything I had, everything we had, and I uh, even got rid of all of my uh, most of my stamps. I donated a couple to a bunch of stamps to Stamps for the Wounded that go out to that send stamps to veterans, wounded veterans, and I donated a bunch of stamps to a couple of young collectors I knew. And I decided to just concentrate on Germany, old German states and the colonies, and Portugal. I fell in love with Portugal after touring around. I really became interested in the uh, history of Portugal, and I just went dove into the deep end of the pool on classic Portugal stamps. And I mentioned I started collecting at 19, and although I collected United States casually, I never did get deep into United States stamps until late in life. And it's only within the past few years I really got into classic US stamps. And so now I'm basically a three-country collector: Germany, Portugal, and United States, plus a few topical areas. I collect the engraved stamps of Czesław Słania. I collect classical music on stamps and literature. And so maybe you want to specialize in a certain area. For instance, France and Austria are notable for their engraved stamps, and a lot of people love the engraved stamps. So France and Austria might be a draw for you. Latin America is a very overlooked area. They have a lot of engraved classic era stamps from before 1940 that were produced by the American Banknote Company. And these are really gorgeous designs, and they're very affordable. Sorry, turning the page here. So once you've decided on an area to collect, either a country or even a topical, the next thing you want to do is to arm yourself with knowledge. Besides these catalogs that I highly recommend, there are a lot of free philatelic resources on the internet available. And on my forum, TED Talk Stamps, which you'll find, you'll see another slide. One of the last slides was what, number 25, I believe, Rob? You'll see where you can access my TED Talk Stamps forum, tedtalkstamps.proboards.com. I have one forum board dedicated to indexing free resources on the internet, and it's indexed by country. So, and you'll be amazed at how much free information there is. And I'm talking about professional grade index. There are certain stamp societies, for instance, the U.S. Philatelic Classics Society, who make all of their journals, their society journals, available for free download for anybody. You don't have to belong to the society. All their journals back to 1948. Most of these, though, the societies, they limit it to the most recent, say 3 to 5 years, are limited to club members. But then from beyond that, back to the beginning, all of their journals are available for free download. If you like Switzerland, several societies, the Philatelic, Helvetia Philatelic Society of Great Britain, the journal, the Swiss Philatelist, TEL, the journal of the Helvetia Society of America. All of their journals are available for free for download, and I have downloaded them. And there's quite a few others, not just these specialist societies, but there are individual websites just by regular collectors who have a lot of good articles, specialized articles that are available for free. And you'll find just a ton of these free websites, all indexed on this board on my forum. If you go to the forum, look in the general philatelic chatter category, and then the last board listed in that category is free philatelic resources. And in fact, since we're talking about the British Empire Study Group, if you're into the Cape of Good Hope, the Cape and Natal Study Group, their society membership is free. And that includes a subscription to their quarterly journal. So, check that out. There's a website called Stamp Smarter, which there's a ton of information available there. A lot of articles and a lot of useful tools for identification of stamps. The Swedish Tiger is another website that's very popular and very useful. So there's just, no excuse for not being able to find information. It's all out there for the taking. So let me give one last chance. I'm about to wrap it up here. If I can, let's see if I can get this video back on. Oh, there we go. Hello again. So anyway, so in closing, I would just invite you all to come on over. Oh, okay. Am I on the screen? So
You're on the
anyways, I want
screen.
to invite you all to, register. Actually, you don't even have to register on my forum. You can read any of the message. You can access any board. You can check out all these free philatelic resources without even registering. But I would invite you to register and start posting on the board. If you have any questions, we have a lot of members that are just ready to, answer any questions you have. And just anxious to, see what you have. And like I said, answer your questions, give you any guidance that you need, and just help you along your journey, on your philatelic journey. So I'll hope to see you there. I thank you for, putting up with my stuttering and stammering. I apologize again for that. Uh, Thank you for joining me here, and I'll hope to see you on the forum. And come on over and see me on YouTube. So thanks, thank you to Joan and Rob for having me here. And I will turn it back over to Rob and Joan.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that, Ted. You know what? That was a wonderful survey, and a beginning survey into a very, very deep hole. I also noticed too that there's some wonderful remarks in the chat column here. As you were speaking, other people were putting in their ideas and stuff, of things to think about. Really struck me. I mean, it's postal history. It's kind of a favorite topic of mine. And it's just another direction somebody could take that, has in some cases minimal stamps, but I mean a lot of research and history that you can learn from.
Right. I haven't. I'm wearing my reading glasses, and the laptop screen is just a little too far to read clearly with my glasses or without. So I don't know if there's been any particular questions directed at me. So maybe if you've seen any, you could direct me towards them, and I'll answer anything I can.
Actually, there weren't any questions pointedly, but there were lots of suggestions, different things. People were talking, some of the people that are more intimate with the information were pointing out, that if you were looking at the King George the Fifth group, the omnibus group, I mean, there's a lot of little flaws and things, flags and changes to a turret on the castle and things like that, that one could get very deep into just one set of stamps, one large set of stamps. That was just one of the comments that was in there, Ted. But we can see that the audience is very, very tuned into a lot of different ways of looking at a collection.
And I guess one bit of advice I'd like to give, because I know a lot of collectors are touchy about, they want to treat their every stamp like it's a holy relic,
Yeah.
which I find unnecessary. Like the beginning slides I showed you, all these stamps with brown edges, creases, and missing perforations and such. Okay, if you want to give them, donate them to to a child or another beginning collector, fine. But really, for the if you're going to delve seriously into philately, just be brutal. You want to have satisfaction in a collection that you create, that you build, and the greatest satisfaction will be found in at least sound quality stamps. Don't be afraid to take that stamp that is of minimal value, even in mint condition. If it's got brown edges and creases and tears, get rid of it. I don't even donate those to children or beginners, because it sends the wrong message. It's saying that, I mean, you're telling me, oh, here's a stamp you might want to collect, and then they're going to, a year or two from now, they're going to find, oh, this is a piece of trash. you know why would I want this? And you're giving me this. You don't want it, so here's trash. Here, you take it. Just get rid of the trash. These aren't holy relics. I mean, you can bundle up a bunch of them, and like I said, give them. There are a lot of people, uh, I will admit, who will accept those damaged stamps. So, go ahead and save them and send it to them if you like, but don't be afraid to trash them either, because I'm not. uh, Otherwise, you'll find yourself becoming overwhelmed with, if you save every stamp, every little stamp, you're going to be overwhelmed eventually, and you'll wonder what to do with it. So
Well,
that's all I have to say about
Aja
that.
will take the damaged stamps. I think he's doing something.
Who's that?
Uh, Aja, you're doing stuff with the damaged stamps, right? Uh,
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, yes, indeed, because the thing is that my point particularly about damaged stamps is that they can be a useful tool for children to make art with, not as serious philately, but my particular point, you may disagree, but my point is that I'm soliciting rubbish that need not be rubbish, because my point is that exposure to stamps can maybe stimulate an interest, may be a useful tool for art, not as serious philately as we know it and discuss, but it is a piece of history that has some value, and it's an artistic tool as well. So my point is not to deny that use.
You're right. You're right. I agree. I don't want to denigrate anyone, for keeping, those stamps. I guess I should, point out that I don't anymore anyways. I don't buy large lots, kiloware, or, anything where I will tend to get a whole lot of, I buy a lot of just individual stamps or individual sets. And when I come across damaged or really trashed out ones, you know, I really don't get enough, you know, to make a good lot to even donate to, people. I get one or two here or there. So, though at those times I do trash those. But yeah, like you said, there are uses for damaged stamps. They are of educational use, and a lot of people use them for art projects. So, yeah, I just want to, just say though that I just go back to the holy relics thing. So many people act like you know, it's a blasphemy to, to even talk that way. But everyone has their own uh, collecting style, and none of those styles are wrong. Whatever is right for you is right, and I won't put you down for it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're not arguing, and as it happens, unfortunately, for the last 6 months, I've been in and out of hospital, and but I have actually enjoyed following you on YouTube. So,
Oh, thank you.
so we're not fighting. We are not fighting. Um, your YouTube things have given me good comfort during that last 6 months. So I have to thank you for that.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks, Aja. George Stevenson, you have your hand up.
Yes, I have just finished completing upgrading a childhood collection. And there's a couple of lessons learned that I think would be worth mentioning. If you are going to go into a new high-priced album, it is worth that you check the specifics of the album that you're now going to transfer your stamps into. For example, there is one, I won't mention the brand, uh, but they have in the later years, 1999 on, have increased the number of errors that are in the supplements. For example, their example of picture and a Scott number don't match.
Huh.
There are issues that are not published. You can't find that Scott number in any of their collection. These errors increased from 2000 on. Okay. In another I inherited some blocks of four, and so I bought a very expensive album, and guess what? No Scott numbers because they didn't want to pay Scott the amount of money, and they had fuzzy photographs and only one photograph, no matter how many variations there were on that one stamp. And so it became very difficult if you have, for example, some of the flag stamps the US has with a whole bunch of variations. There was one photograph for 26 different stamps. And so investigate the stamp before you invest $100 a volume or more, and also the fact that some of the supplements are not available, or you can have them printed at a very large cost. So
Yeah, I had a similar experience buying an expensive album, a hingeless album, and I will tell you the brand. It was Davo, Davo, and I ended up returning it because they don't. I forgot what country is it from? Is it uh, Danish company or what Netherlands company?
yeah,
Anyways, so they follow a completely different catalog, and a lot of the varieties in Scott, or not really variety as such, but the catalog
I
numbers in Scott were not listed in the Davo album
yeah,
because
I will have one more thing I would suggest is that if you have a collection that was given to you and it has a variety of stamps in it, if there is a story that's connected to that stamp, make a special page for that stamp and tell the story. For example, my I inherited part of my collection from my father who was got a stamp from Tuna Tova. Okay, I have the stamp to this day, but he started reading about Tibet gave a presentation in geography class, and from that got an A because his subject was polyandry, and the teacher thought that that was very appropriate. That polygamy was also another side to it, and so I wrote up that story about that one particular stamp and how it came into my collection. And so if you have a story, take the time, make a special page, tell the story.
And if for those of you who might not know, there is a website. I never can remember the name of the website, but Clive Levinson makes an album easy program where you can create your own album pages. I love it. I use it for all my album pages now. Like I said, I don't know the website name, but if you just Google album easy, all is one word, not two words, although it might come up as two words. It'll be the first result you get from Google, and you can create your own pages very easily. And then you have your album customized just the way you want.
Ted, I think Clive is on. He was online at least when we started the webinar.
Oh, yeah.
Are you out there, Clive? No, I guess not.
Oh, yeah, yes, I am.
Aha.
There he is.
Good. Great. Well, I'm pleased you like the program.
So yeah, thank you very much for what you've done for collectors. So I suppose if you belong to this group, then everyone else already knows about about your album program. So, but yeah, highly recommended, everyone.
All right. John Handman, you had your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. Ted, you'll excuse my hesitation. It's very early in the morning. Yeah, I think it's 1:30 in the morning or so, yeah. My question to you is that you started off the presentation not being particularly positive about the hobby. What is your feeling in terms of the future of the hobby? And is there a future to it? And what would be your suggestion in terms of reinvigorating the hobby?
Well, I personally, I believe that the as far as the popularity and the participation in the hobby goes, I think it's bottomed out by now. I believe that it seems to me there's a lot of people coming into the hobby again. We saw that, a couple of years ago. It started, from the pandemic, and a lot of people rediscovered their stamp collections. But, even since then, I see a lot of people. I get a lot of comments on my YouTube videos from people who are, just starting. So just from my little, tunnel view, I see people coming into the hobby, and that encourages me. And and I believe it can only go up from here. I believe it will. And even if it doesn't, as long as I'm still collecting, the hobby still exists. If no one else ever, if everyone else drops off, the face of the earth, I'm the only stamp collector left. Well, I still have the hobby. But of course, it's a lot more fun, a lot more interesting to, share it with others. But I really do believe it's bottomed out, and it's only up and away from here.
Okay, thank you. I just maybe just share my experience. you were showing initially in those first couple of pages is what we refer to in South Africa as schoolboy collections, which 90% of the time they are. I collected as a schoolboy and stopped before I finished school. And at the beginning of the pandemic, my father called me in, who's been a collector for 80 odd years, and said, well, what about the stamps? So I said to him, well, what about the stamps? And I sat exactly with the problem that we've been discussing tonight. And he said to me, look, I'm 80 odd years old. I might not make it through this pandemic. So I said, well, I was able to visit him. Could move around unrestricted. And eventually I sat down, we went through his whole collection, which is an incredible collection being built up over 30 years or 80 years odd. And I very quickly realized that our interests weren't going to align. My dad has always collected and has collected, and it's about those sets of stamps. It's about what he can afford or what he could afford and all the rest of it. For me, the historical value in this hobby is what it's all about. I don't desire to collect sets of stamps. I want to be able to tell a story about a particular time and place that these stamps or covers, as we refer to them, represent. And I think from that aspect, with the society that I'm now president of in Maritzburg, in KwaZulu-Natal, which is one of our provinces, that is the direction that our club is going in that it has become more of a, and I'm going to use a term here, and many of you probably would have heard of it, is context philately. I'm met Alex Hyman, who I don't know if any of you know, who curated the Clash of Empires exhibition in London at the Royal. But he's an American and part of the American Society Federation. And Alex and I have developed a very close relationship. And I think it's an area of philately that has huge relevance to newer members and members that are coming in that we try to modernize what has been a very traditional and very staid hobby, and that has lots of rules in terms of exhibiting and competition, exhibiting that kind of thing. And that's, I think, all I've got to say. If anybody wants to comment on that.
John, we did have Alex give his Clash of the Nations, the Zulu exhibit, I call it, because it was fantastic. He did it here for us, sort of live, not the whole thing, but he gave us some of the highlights in 2 different shows. So, and it was fantastic. The way he incorporated, for those of you who didn't see it, you should look at the video, how he incorporated postal artifacts into his exhibit. And Gene Wang's talk was also very good at taking different aspects of philately and not just being all about the stamp. But well, Jean's here, so she could. So, oh gosh, sorry about that, Jean. Well, actually, I'm singing your praises, so I'm not sorry about that. But yeah, you did. I love what you do and how you speak to the audience, and I think there's something to that. Ted, do you think that with your YouTube Do you find more context, or do you find the pure stamp collecting?
Yeah,
more?
For me personally, it's the pure stamp. I collect. I like the stamps themselves, the history of the stamps as historical artifacts and artistic, pieces of work and such. So to me, it's all about the stamp. I don't really get into postal history. So, but there are a couple of areas that just has more to do with, like say the horseshoe cancels for Germany and the time on bottom stamps for U.S. Stamps. But there again, it's not really a postal history as such. It's just a particular postal marking. And
Yeah, I think you're really right about that, because if you look at the old stamp catalogs, a lot of the stampless covers, for example, were, yeah, I remember when I got into, I said I was going to collect, first thing my husband says, well, collect stampless covers, because this is just in general, they're cheap, right? Anyway, husband talking. So, but now you can't, you have to battle for a lot of the postal history stuff. But anyway, Aja, you have your hand.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is that my father, I mean, I got into the hobby, I suppose, as a youngster. My father, I guess, bought most of the stamps, and as a teenager, I was fairly active, but then it dropped off and I forgot about it until I retired to Riga, Latvia, and I rediscovered my father's Latvian stamps, and that opened a lot of memories, and that rekindled a passion, partly in respect of his memory and the history of Latvia between my grandfather's time and the time my father left Latvia, Second World War. And the postal history aspect, the history, the background, that's the thing that particularly got me. I mean, the small collection he actually took with him from Latvia to Germany and then to UK in 1940, between 1945 and 1947. He preserved those stamps in very good condition. I don't know how, quite honestly, but it obviously meant something to him. And of course, it's an incredibly important family memory for me. And that's what inspired me to say, well, I must complete the collection of everything that was produced between 1918 and 1945. But I mean, that's how I came back to philately and got into it very much. And then my association with Egypt, I diverted some interest in Egypt because Egypt in 1930s was also a very interesting time. But on the general level, and John, who was talking previously, John Hanman made some interesting points as well. The thing is that beyond, it's a personal opinion, but beyond the stamps themselves, the history and the geography and these aspects for getting younger people into the hobby, absorbed into the hobby, I think it's an incredible tool. And it's not the value of the stamp itself, but what it says, what it represents, and so on. That story, I think, is fascinating, and that's one of partly, I hope, the exercise with the children's schools, so that not everybody might become a philatelist. If they do, that's fine. But it's getting the story beyond that piece of paper, what it represents, what it means, or what it meant, what it represented. I think that story is that's the story.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Aja, very good. Thank you for bringing that up. Kenneth, you have your hand up there. Yep.
Yes,
You have to
yeah.
unmute. Oh, did I just mute you? Hold on. Try again.
Okay.
Yep.
Is that working now? Yeah, I just wanted to go back a little bit to the topic of selling or finding out what the inherited collection is. And I think that obviously the first thing is, if you belong to a stamp club, bring that collection or some of the albums to the stamp club. And stamp clubs are just loaded with experts, at least in my experience. And that they're a wonderful resource. The other thing that I'm amazed with is that stamp collectors have an incredible ability to memorize stamps. And you can look at an album and go through the album, and you know what the common stamps are. And I actually enjoy, in our club, we have 5-cent pickouts where the club buys collections and they go through and pick out what they think are the really good stamps, which they auction off at our meetings. And the rest of the books we're allowed to go through. We can take any stamp for 5 cents. And I've purchased, 5-cent stamps, beautiful condition, cataloging up to like $350. And you can't bring your collection with you to the meetings to go through. You use your memory to go through the albums and pick out what's unusual, you don't recognize, or you might think could be a good stamp. And number one, you build your collection up with a lot of 5-cent stamps, but you do find those little hidden jewels. So I think knowing the stamps will help you evaluate a collection reasonably quickly. You should be able to go through the album, assuming you collect the countries that are in the album, to go through the album and possibly find the stamps that might have value that you can look into a little bit more. The other thing is, in some respects, what Ted was talking about, the quality of the stamps. Now there are countries where the used stamps are more valuable than the mint stamps. But in most instances, if the collection is mint no hinge, you've got a better chance of finding something of value, particularly as the older the stamps are. The other thing, which has already been mentioned, the albums with a story or collections with a story, because I think most stamp collectors are interested in more information, more knowledge of the hobby. And if a collection is well organized, that tells a story, it could be about the whole country through time, or just portions, periods of time within a country, it may not be necessarily more valuable from a dollar perspective or pound perspective, but it's more valuable, I think, it has sort of an intrinsic value to a collector. And I think, that's kind of that's an important thing for me. I love stories with stamps. And also I wanted to make one comment about trash stamps as well. I will, especially when I'm going through albums and I find a stamp, it might be valuable, but it's got a few bent perforations, and it's not worth anything, but it's that term, it's a space filler. And if you're trying to build a collection, and you don't have, thousands of dollars to spend on a collection, I think those are okay. Until you can find, a good one. And the only other thing is that common stamps, actually, I should mention, I belong to two clubs, one in Massachusetts and one in Connecticut. And the membership is growing in both of them by quite significantly. So that's an encouraging side of things. I was going to make one more point. Now it's gone. So, I thought I would share those few points. Thank you.
Well, I think some of the stuff that people like Ted are doing, getting themselves out on YouTube and getting it into the social media is really helping, is a really big asset to the hobby. And Ted, that's how I first saw you. And I think that's fantastic what you're doing.
Yeah, I'm kind of disappointed that Graham
Yeah.
exploring stamps, Graham Beck. I don't think he's doing his YouTubes anymore, or very, very rarely. And I thought, he was a big driver in attracting a lot of, I mean, you saw his subscriber count.
He was cute. Yeah.
And yeah, he's young. People could relate to him more than they can to this, wrinkled old
Oh,
fart.
don't underestimate the value of your image there, Ted, because everyone you instill trust.
But yeah, I mean, but you know what I mean, though. They see this, young guy with, talking about, the fun of stamps and the interesting stories behind them, and he did a lot in attracting collectors. So, if we can get more younger people, not just into the hobby, but talking about the hobby on YouTube or podcasts, and attracting those, their peers.
And
Yeah. Are you calling me to say a few things?
Go ahead,
Yeah.
Ian.
Just a couple of things. First of all, Ted, I am in partial agreement with you about the damaged stamps. Chuck 'em. And I say partial agreement. I have just got to the point where I look at stamps now and I think, well, it's modern, it's a CTO, it's a mass produced, and there's nothing special about it. It's creased, it's thinned by a hinge, chuck it out. But I definitely don't agree with that on some of the older stamps.
Oh,
And
yeah.
a case in point, I had a tie stamp that was a very common tie stamp. It had a couple of short perforations. It was a little bit thinned on the back, and I was just about to relegate it to the big bin. And someone said, "Don't throw that away. That's got a Thai postmark on it. That's all in Thai script. You wouldn't understand what it says, but it's actually a Thai town that used to be a Thai town that is now part of Malaysia. And there's a whole group of Thai collectors that want to collect the stamps with a readable postmark from those towns that have been annexed by Malaysia in the south of Thailand." And so it had this whole other meaning. For a very short time, Thailand took over that particular town in a war. Thai stamps were used there. They were postmarked there with Thai transcript. And then Malaysia fought back and took the town back. So they're in fact very, very rare. And I was about to throw away a very common stamp because it was damaged. And in fact, it was actually a very rare stamp because of the postmark. So you do have to be a little bit careful on that respect. And the other comment, John Hanman made very good point about picking a subject rather than just a country or something like that. I think that was the gist of John's message, is focus on something, a more sort of focused philately. And I think perhaps, there'll be collectors out there that will always buy a pre-printed album and want to fill every gap. But I think perhaps that is maybe not the future of the hobby, because the amount of stamps being issued from countries is so great, it becomes an overwhelming and very expensive way to do it in the end, because postage rates are going up, face values are going up. To keep up with new issues, you're going to have to spend hundreds of dollars a year. And if you're just starting out collecting, you've got to spend thousands of dollars to collect all the back issues as well. Whereas what we've started doing in our club recently is quite new to philately, and there was a bit of pushback to it initially. We're having one-page competitions where someone highlights something from their collection and tells us a story in one page. And a very good one recently was a souvenir sheet from New Zealand, a miniature sheet from New Zealand that was issued in the 1960s. It was the first on many points, and all of us knew the miniature sheet, and we never realized that it was such a groundbreaking sheet. It was the first set of stamps to be printed in a setenant block. It was a setenant block of the stamps in the miniature sheet. It was the first New Zealand stamp to be embossed. And there was all these firsts that they came up with from a very common miniature sheet, which we all learned from. And another thing that we found went down really well at our stamp club was we sealed up 50 different quite interesting stamps, very cheap stamps, in envelopes, and labeled them 1 to 50, and said, everyone pick a number, and we're going to give you an envelope with a stamp in it. You take that stamp home, and over the next month before our next meeting, you ought to mount that stamp up on a page and tell us something about it. And it was amazing what some people came up with a stamp they were given at random. It was absolutely, some of the displays on this single stamp were amazing, and everybody enjoyed it.
Ian, what a fun idea.
Yes,
That is a great idea.
Nobody knew what they were going to get. It was a mystery envelope. Pick a number, pick your favorite number. We're sending you home with a stamp, and you ought to come back next month having written that stamp up on a page. And people had to research the stamp, research the country, research the theme, and some of them were amazing. And I think if you want to bring youngsters into the hobby, a teacher in a class could say, we've got 30 envelopes, everybody pick a number, we're sending you home with a stamp, come back and tell us about the story. Your stamp might be from Jamaica. You can tell us about Jamaica. You can tell us about the fruit that's on the stamp. You can tell us anything about it.
Oh, so that would be right. Like if I had millions, if I was, gross and I wanted to, and I had a lot of money, I would love to take that idea and run it as a scholarship. Like who could write the best essay on a random stamp? That would be so cool. And it would also get them to look at the stamps.
Those of us that filled the envelopes, well, there was 2 of us from the club that filled the envelopes. We made sure the stamps were something special, that it had something interesting. It wasn't just a picture of a monarch on a monocolored stamp. There was something about the stamp that, hey, you can tell a story here.
What a cool idea.
Yeah, a couple of years ago.
Absolutely fantastic. I mean, Ian, that's brilliant. Really, that's an inspiration for me. I mean, it helps my idea for September. So thank you.
Okay.
Ted, you were...
Yeah. About the writing up a stamp. A couple of years ago, Richard Philatelist, I'm sure many of you probably know him. I think it was him who started a challenge among among the stamp YouTubers, called Swap and Research. So where two of the Stampy YouTubers would send each other a set of stamps, and then your assignment was to research the issue and find out the story behind the subject and the stamp, and then do a YouTube video on it. And that went on for well, a few months anyways. It was going pretty good. There was several of us involved, but then it kind of went by the wayside. A lot of YouTubers who started up a couple of years ago, they've all kind of dropped out again. So, but yeah, that was fun to just get a random set from somebody and just have to look up the story of the subject.
Ted, what got you into YouTube?
Graham Beck.
Okay.
I was
Who was your ins-
I was searching around for information on stamps, and there was very little stamp content except for those endless, the most valuable and rare stamps in the world, the most valuable U.S. stamps. And then I happened upon Exploring Stamps with Graham Beck. I said, this guy, he's got the got the right idea. And I saw where it got me interested because, well, I've got a little bit of knowledge I can share with people, and it's actually on a different track than him, what he's doing. We're not completely, overlapping each other. So, it's not like I'd be copying him. So, yeah, so I said, I'll just share what bit of philatelic, what bit of knowledge I have, because I'm sure there'll be others who are, less knowledgeable than me who can, find this useful. So I've jumped in.
All right, Dennis King, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, there is an update on Graham. He's still very active, and he's actually started something called Pix Post, P-I-X Post. And it's an effort very much like his YouTube efforts, but you take a stamp, let's say it's the Brooklyn Bridge, and you take that stamp to the Brooklyn Bridge and hold it up and take a picture with the item in the stamp.
Oh yeah, extreme philately.
Yeah, it's a new application he started, and there's contests of who can get the first person to post a given item in a given place or at a given post office or whatever. So Graham's still very active. He's actually a member of the American Citizens Stamp Advisory.
The Citizens Advisory Group, yeah.
Yeah. So he's still active. He's not doing as much on YouTube, but this new application, he's putting a lot of time and effort to it, and it's right up his alley. It's just an extension of what he'd been doing before, and it's very good. It's a nice thing. You can look it up, PIX Post, and he does a real nice job with it.
Oh, thank you for that update, Dennis. That's very, very interesting and very encouraging that you just didn't go away, because that would have been a loss to the hobby. How late is it in Portugal, Ted?
It is midnight.
Oh boy.
Or 37 minutes past.
Great cat, John. Look at that guy. Looks like a little leopard.
Yeah, it's very cold in South Africa at the moment, so he's all over me. Normally he just ignores me.
That is a leopard. What is it actually?
He's I
mean, that's not a regular house cat, is it?
Yeah, he's a domestic cat.
Huh.
They are called I forget now, some fancy name.
Almost
but
like an
I inherited
ocelot.
him. Yeah, they're called.
Dan says Bengal.
I forget. Yes, Bengals. That's right. Yeah, he's a Bengal.
Good going.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
Frederick,
anyway.
Frederick Lawrence does a lot with the Scouts on Stamps also, which I think is a really good, you do a lot of work with the kids, Frederick. And I think that's wonderful.
Joan, if I can just also say, I think what we're doing right now has contributed hugely to the whole hobby. It didn't happen before the pandemic. I mean, there was very little communication between continents or even between countries. And we only ever met at big international shows, and we wrote emails and all the rest of it. But the discussions that are happening now, and I must attend 4 or 5 a week, seminars or 1-hour meetings that we have, even all the meetings that we have as a federation are open for people to attend as well. So it's made everybody just a little bit closer, I think, in that you can make contact with people that you wouldn't have ordinarily met ever in your hobby, right through your whole life.
Yeah, you're right. And in fact, I've been thinking, well, we've been talking here that this is my first meeting with y'all, but it's not going to be my last. I enjoyed, being with this group, and
We're pretty loose.
yeah,
We
I'll
don't bother with
be back.
membership fees. That's the whole thing. One of the things that we talked about is as soon as you put up a barrier for a kid, which is, or a person, which is, you have to join this group. I'm not sure people like to do, because then it's a commitment. So we try to, I try to keep everything as free flowing as possible without making it seem like it's not an obligation. It should be something you want to do, and it shouldn't cost you an arm and a leg to come and enjoy your stamps, which is one of the things we do. The brick and mortar clubs, well, they're a little different. They might have overheads and stuff, and given the choice of where you want your dollars, we at the British Empire, Rob will agree, we want you to go to the local stamp club and pay your dues so they could do the meetings and things like that. But Ted, what you do, you were fantastic. I first saw you on the when I saw your video, I said, I have to get this guy in the program because it was so interesting. So anyway, anything else? Aja, I see you have your hand up. Something.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No, that's okay. Go on.
I was going to say that the pandemic kind of obviously did change things, and I mean, I was historically part of the museum profession, and suddenly one of the international symposiums was online, not in the United States, which would have been a long way from Kuwait, where I was based originally. And yeah, I mean, it was wonderful to connect with people from, and I thought, oh, I know this lecturer and I know that lecturer, and it was fantastic. So, I mean, I'm not saying COVID was fantastic, but in the fact that it reinvented the means of communication was a big positive.
Yeah, I think what it did was putting on my academic hat. I think it sped up the technology curve, because meetings were moving online before the pandemic. The pandemic just made it just really go very fast to adopt technology adaptation. Anyway, John, great cat. I just love that cat.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
He's irritating me now. I just wanted to know, Joan, in terms of presentations that you organize, I'm happy to speak to you on email in terms of doing something with what we're doing as well.
Oh, that would be great. Always looking for victims.
I think most of the collecting now, although we have the physical thing, most of my concentration is first to do with whatever particular subject I'm doing, is to do a PowerPoint presentation, which doesn't actually fit into an exhibit format, and then to take everything and redo it again in exhibit format. So my speciality is just is Natal, pre-union in South Africa, and Zululand. So I think there's enough there for as long as I'm alive to keep me busy. So much happened in that area over 70 years. So yeah, it'll keep me busy forever.
It is, and like Ted, some of your Substack articles have just been, again, really, really informative.
I just posted a new one earlier this evening.
What's the title?
And it's on the 1869 U.S. issue and the 1875 reprints. And that was because I came across, got one of Mystic Stamp's marketing emails. And the subject was on the 1875 reprints. And while I knew about them, I never paid much attention because they are expensive. But just reading the little bit that Mystic had in their email, it said, man, that would make a good subject of a Substack post. So I just got on the net and found out everything I could about the 1869 issue and the reprints, and just wrote up everything I knew. And it's pretty interesting. Oh, I mean, I don't mean my article is, but the stamps are.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'll say your article is.
I'm sorry.
My friend Hugh Mosher is online here.
You have to unmute.
You're muted, Hugh.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, so thought I should jump in here a little bit because having been in the collectibles and antique business for a while, but never a stamp dealer, but I was a stamp collector. So everybody kind of knows that I was into the business. So I've represented over the last 25, 30 years. I can't count how many collections since Ted started out a little on the negative side about kids' collections and stuff. And that's a sad reality. I forewarn anybody before they ever present anything to me. Don't have great expectations. Let's be realistic of what's happening here. But it's a funny thing. I'm still old school. I still collect worldwide, but I don't buy worldwide. What happened? But there's something therapeutic about going through an old worldwide collection. So if they get presented to me, I won't buy single stamp, but if somebody brings me a box, I'll give them what I consider a fair offer. I'll send them off to a dealer if it's better stuff. Most times I'll say, listen, I'll give you 200, but I think you can do better. Take it here. And I'll get a call back within an hour. We'll take your $200. Then I pull my hair out. But there's something therapeutic about going through these old albums. The most interesting thing is, and I'm sure all of us have gone through lots of albums and old collections. Invariably, every collection, you'll find somebody's roots there. A bunch I'm going through right now, there was some connection with Hungary. There's all kinds of stuff. Hungary. A previous collection, it was all Latvia. Everybody's got a connection someplace in their background. And so I don't think the hobby is dead. I think that, like you say, we're kind of starting over. I think the pandemic started this over. But I think people have to be realistic and not put a lot of cash value on it. I kind of get into the big money stuff during the pandemic because I tend to travel a couple times a year, and all of a sudden, not traveling to Europe, not traveling to Asia, all of a sudden, well, I have this money in my pocket, so I guess I'll buy my better Canadian, my better Nova Scotia. So I get as much thrill with an old junk box as I do out of the Falkland Islands 10 shilling stamp that arrived in the mail today. But my biggest thrill, of course, is still, the only thing I'm really a philately this thing is my some Nova Scotia stuff. I get pretty excited over some of that stuff. But thank you very much, Ted, for your presentation. And with the realistic start, like I say, as John said, it was earlier, it might have been a little negative, but that's the reality of it out there. It's, not every collection is great, but even a kid's collection will turn up some gems once in a while. I never go poo-poo on them totally.
Hey, there's a auction coming up next month. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
There's an auction coming up next month for New Zealand's rarest stamp. It's an invert, and it was found actually in a child stamp album.
Oh, how
back
interesting.
back around 1930. Well, I have a Substack post on that if you want to read it. But
Oh,
yeah,
that's good.
a farmer in England around 1930. It was depression, the worldwide depression, and he was hard up for cash, and he dragged out his album to see if he had anything that he could sell for some little pocket change. And what the stamp is from, I want to say 1897, maybe. And so now here's 1930, where he got it back then, just within a year or two after it was issued. And 30 years later, he's grown up, pulls out his childhood album, and for the first time, he is the first one to notice that the stamp is inverted. And it's
Wow.
only had a couple of owners since then. And for the past 27 years, it's been owned by New Zealand Post.
Wow.
And they are now auctioning it next month. So it'll be interesting to see how much that gets.
Oh, that's great. Who's auctioning that off?
Um,
Is it Abacus or
It's Mowbray Collectibles in New Zealand.
Mulberry?
yeah,
Okay.
Mowbray.
Mulberry. Oh, that's so cool. Oh, there it is. You know what? The one thing that stuck out when you said stinky collections, you know, the stinky,
Yeah.
stinky.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I can't tell you how many stinky collections we get that, you know, you don't want them in your, I mean, and you're tempted just to like put the whole thing in the bin, but it's like, you know, it's like dealing with a dog that just got skunked, you know. But and it's a shame that there could be some really good stamps in a real stinky collection, and it just, you know,
Yeah,
anyway.
because sure, even the most serious collector, decades back, they would have smoked without even thinking about the effect of their smoking on their cigarettes. I mean, on their stamps.
But the mold, you know, when someone doesn't store it properly. So it could have been a
Yeah.
great collection, not stored properly, get water and mold. And again, it becomes one of those stinky collections. But I think when you say about, in my experience with the kids things, that's usually how should I put it? It's very rare that we find a kids collection that has something of value in it. So I think that's just to establish like realistic expectations. I think your guidance is quite right. Generally speaking, a kid's stamp collection doesn't have a lot of value.
We have a similar story in Natal where a halfpenny Victoria stamp, sorry, Edward stamp, turned up an inverted and reversed watermark that is undocumented. It's the only one known, and it's the most common stamp of Natal. So it's now been catalogued in Gibbons, because I took it to them when they were out here for the international exhibition in Cape Town. But I have now been through thousands of those stamps and not found another one. So I would presume there was probably only ever one sheet that was inverted.
Or a very good forger.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's been certified, so.
I still have a lot of my forgeries. So no, I mean, I'm not saying you don't really know. And that's the fun of stamps, right? Is that mystery. Ted, I think you look tired. It's after.
Yeah.
I thank you very, very, very much, unless anyone has anything else they'd like to add. Again,
Hey, anybody know a good German, expert? A while, some years back, I bought the World War One forgeries of the Germania stamps, and I can only take the dealer's word that they are, because everything I read about them that describes what are the tells, I can't tell. So I haven't been able to find a good reference to be
we
able
use
to.
Till Neumann sometimes for more, well, that was more the Swedish stuff. Good German expert.
I would, if it's worth the money, send it in for expertization, because I had a stamp that I bought and it came with a certificate saying that it was a fake or a forgery or a reprint. And to me, it looked real, and I did not have then a genuine example to compare it with. It was that rare. There was only about 30. There is still only about 30 of them documented in the world, until I went to a stamp fair where a dealer had a genuine one that was certified genuine, and I asked him if I could examine them side by side, and he said, "Go ahead." I got my micrometer out and measured the paper thickness, looked at the paper type, looked at the colors. My one looked pretty much identical, so I sent it off to another expertizing committee that came back and said it's genuine. So I tore up the one that said it was fake, and the one that said it was fake didn't have a picture of it. So I don't know whether everything got mixed up in the process, but I bought it as a fake, paid money that it was fake, and ended up getting a certificate saying it was genuine. So if they're worth the money, get it certified.
Ian, we'll
but
give you
then
your money
even-
back for misdescribing that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But even then, I might get a certificate saying it's genuine, but I don't know why. What makes it, that's mainly what I want to know. What's the difference? How do I tell if that
Who's a
is?
good German expert? Anybody?
Yeah.
I'm just wondering whether or not Harry von Hoffmann Verlag Hamburg might be a possibility. I mean, they're experts on Letland, Latvia, but
That's one of the things that irritates me. Oh,
they're from Hamburg, so maybe Harry von Hoffmann Verlag might be a source. As a guess.
yeah. Yeah. One of the things that irritates me about websites these days is there's too many that don't use pictures. It doesn't, why? People will describe stamps and, tell you this and that, but they won't show it.
Old school, that remember they were copyrighted. So like when back in I think it's the 30s, we always had to deface the stamp when we put it in a catalog. So there may be some people who are worried about copyright infringement, but as we learned earlier, there's fair use and educational use.
Earlier we were talking about is the hobby growing or diminishing? I'd just like to make an observation. I belong to an online group called The Stamp Forum. Hugh Mosher is another member, and Clive. At any rate, there seems to be a pattern of the people who are joining our organization, and it seems that a seed was probably planted back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, whatever, where collection was begun by a young person, and then they got out of high school, and for whatever reason, girls came along, or whatever the reason, they stopped collecting. But we're seeing these people showing up on the forum. I mean, it's almost a pattern. They're the largest group that I notice, coming into the forum, are people with that kind of a background. And now that the family, they're empty nesters, the family's gone, they've got time, they've got money, maybe in some cases, and they're picking up the hobby again. And there seems to be some strength in it. Then the other group of people in general that may be coming into online are those who are seeking information because, I mean, we're a deep source. We've got a lot of archival material to dive into. And we see them come in with their questions, and it's wonderful. And then as far as the youth side of it, not very many, but we've got a couple that are just unbelievable. This one young man from India, he's I don't know, he seems to be like 50 years old with what he comes up with, his knowledge, his depth in the hobby. So it's encouraging to see the direction that it takes, at least when you're seeing activity. And I don't know, I enjoy it very much.
Yeah, that just brings up a point to me where I read so often that we have to get more young people involved, where I don't think that's where the future lies. Sure, you can get all these young people involved, 10, 11, 12-year-olds, but their interest will wane in another couple of years. That they don't have the stick-to-itiveness. I mean, sure, there's millions of, well, so many collectors that I know that started when they were 10 years old. But I can almost guarantee you that they have not been continuous from the age of 10. They dropped out. I know my niece took up collecting as a young girl, and I ended up with her collection, which, by the way, I did find a fairly decent stamp. It was a Great Britain, I think it might have been a seahorse that had a catalog value of $45. And I said, what was she doing with a $45 stamp in her? But and uh, but yeah, the younger kids, because not only they grow out of it, or they start getting the uncoolness from their peers. They're not cool. So, and then they drop out. Then they might pick it up. I think where the most of the energy should be focused is on, like I said, the old ones that are already out of high school and who can appreciate the hobby, the history and uh, the aesthetic value of stamps and all that. So yeah, I just disagree with people who insist on going after the young folks. That's all.
Called indoctrination. You have to plant the seed.
Yeah.
You have a long term, it's going to be a long horizon till you get the benefit. But nice to see you, Ronnie. Hey.
Rob, if I can just add to what you said, our club has doubled in the last 2 years, and simply because we focused on what we call retirement estates. And retirement estates in South Africa are a number of houses, smaller houses that are put in a secure environment where people, like-minded people of the same, varied sort of income groups. And we found that almost exclusively all of our new members have come from those retirement estates. Once they've retired, once they've stopped working, they pick up the hobby again. And it's amazing to see the material that they've inherited, just like I will do from my father. Incredible material that's coming out of the woodwork that we've never seen. I have a postcard collection of 4,000 or 5,000 cards just on Natal, and they've all come from 3 old ladies that said, I don't want them anymore. Yeah, take them. And just, we have tried really hard at schools and at kids. And it's got to that stage in South Africa now where if you show a 10-year-old a stamp, they have no idea what it is. Absolutely no idea what it is. They've never received a letter in their lives, so they have no idea. And that it might be a bit better if our postal system worked, but it doesn't. So yeah, I was shocked the first time I went in to do a presentation to the kids. They were completely attentive to the presentation. But then, at the end of the presentation, they said, well, but why would you do it?
Mhm.
Mm.
Except for Pokemon on stamps, right?
Yeah.
So, okay.
Poor Barbie dolls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ted, I want to be conscientious of Aja. I'd love to get your comment in. I want to be conscientious of Ted's time and not keeping Ted up
No,
too
no
late.
worries. No worries.
Oh, okay. Aja, you had a final comment quickly? You have to unmute. Or not. We can't hear you, so.
Sorry, as 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
But anyway, no, I mean, I respect Ted's comments there, but I beg to differ that we don't know the result of exposing philately to youngsters. We don't know. The thing is that my point is that by giving the opportunity, we can educate, we can do something, and maybe maybe it's long-term rather than a short-term thing, because in my case, many people, they came into the hobby as youngsters, they forgot it, and then something else came about that regenerated the interest and made it a passion. So the thing is that we can't write off the exposure and the possibilities of the future. I mean, the fact that it's true that people don't receive letters anymore or postcards, it's a niche thing, but it doesn't negate the discovery of countries, historical countries, countries that don't exist anymore. It doesn't negate all these educational possibilities, and it can be exciting.
Well, thank you. Cheryl, you had a great idea about putting some stamps in the libraries and activities. That's a great idea. But that wasn't the topic for tonight, so we'll just, we'll try to keep it focused, and maybe we'll do something like that. We'll get some young philatelists on so we could get it from the horse's mouth, what their problem is,
Yeah.
So anyway, I'll see if I could find a niece or a nephew that we could grill and I don't want to talk to ever again. So anyway, Ted, thank you very, very much. If there's anything
Thank
else
you.
for Ted, be sure to look at some of your stuff. I think that's great. And thank everyone for coming.